Hi, everybody. I am Christine, like he said, Director of Consulting, and I'd like us to get started. Heather?
Hi, I'm Heather.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks to everyone for coming this evening and for all that you do for GHM. A little bit about myself. I'm trying to say what I feel has resonated with some of our volunteers at the office and things. I grew up in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and I know we have some people from Aberdeen here. Thank you. I haven't talked to you yet, but we will. But I did live here in the Twin Cities as a kid, in Burnsville and Apple Valley as a small child. But I was born in Fargo. But I also have Minnesota roots. So, I'm back to my roots. My grandfather was born and raised in Hibbing on the Iron Range. And his name was Perpage. So I think many of you recognize the last name. My mom's maiden name is Perpage. So I do have deep roots here in Minnesota. It was from my great-grandparents who migrated from Croatia up to the Iron Range. And I recently had the great joy of reading their applications for citizenship they came in 1907 or so, but their applications were like around 1930. So deep Minnesota roots. Brothers went to college here in Minnesota, so I'm really happy to be here, and I have good friends, some of whom are here tonight, from college and high school, and so I really am happy to be here in Minnesota.
I'm really curious, what brought you to GHM? Like, how did you find out about GHM?
Thanks. It sounds a little bit corny, but destiny, I think, is what it was. I recently was working for USAID, as many of you know, was dismantled, is a kind word to use to describe it, but it was dismantled, and so I came back to the U.S. last June, and I admit I was a little down. My career was squashed. I was a Foreign Service officer, and I had expected to continue that work until retirement. So I took a few months and was down, but right around Christmas time, I started to come back up and get my wits about me. And a dear friend, some of you may know, Anne Longji, ELCA missionary in Cameroon and Senegal for many years. She and I are dear friends from way back, and she sent me the announcement for executive director, and I thought it really fit my mission, working with a mission-based organization, global health, and leading a great team. So it was a perfect fit. It was destiny.
So a lot of what you have done is public health, and I'm curious, what are you passionate about? Like, what interests you about public health? How did you get into that?
So I don't think there's part of public health that I don't like, honestly. But I really was spurred by my junior year of college. I went to college in a small school in Ohio, but I studied in Senegal for a year. And while I was there, I independently studied HIV/AIDS and how it affected women. And this was in the 90s, so it was still early in the pandemic, and it just sparked my interest in public health. And at that time, public health wasn't really available to non-clinical people, but it was just starting to emerge, and I decided I wanted to do public health. And I've since worked many years in HIV, infectious disease. Really, in the last few years, was working on global health security, meaning stopping the next outbreak of zoonotic diseases like Lassa fever, Marburg disease.
Okay, talking about public health, talking about, where were you? Senegal, you said? I feel like you traveled before that. You should talk about your first travel experience, I think, and share with these folks here.
Yeah. I think it's a fun story. I was in South Dakota growing up in high school and was at summer church camp. And I was sitting there, and somebody announced a trip to the Soviet Union. So I'm aging myself a little bit. They mentioned a trip to the Soviet Union, and somehow I indicated that sounded really interesting to me. And it just so happened that my youth pastor was sitting next to me, And because I thought, no way, my parents aren't going to pay for that kind of a trip. And he so graciously, he saw something in me and he said, our church would help you pay for that trip. And that led me on my path. It was my first time on an airplane. So that really did lead me on a path, and the world opened up to me. Went to college. I had the chance to go for spring break, a service spring break trip to the Dominican Republic, where we pretended to build latrines. Now I've been sitting next to latrine experts, wash experts during dinner, and I wasn't really contributing much, but I learned a lot on those trips. So.
The thing that's really fun about Heather is she has traveled to a lot of countries, and I'm a fellow traveler. I love to travel a lot. Who here has traveled? Who likes to travel?
Both
I feel
hands.
like if you've traveled, you like to travel, right? Usually. And she's traveled a lot and lived in quite a few different countries. Like, which countries have you lived in?
Yeah, I'm sure there's many people here who would beat me in travel, international travel. But as I mentioned, I lived in Senegal in college for a year and have traveled many times there back and forth. Then I went to Zimbabwe. Maybe some of you know Rotary International, so I had a Rotary scholarship from the South Dakota district and studied in Zimbabwe. And then I went to Benin, and we share that in common. She spent much more time in Benin, but a couple years in Benin. And then Botswana for 5.5 years, and Zambia for 3. In Botswana and Zambia, I worked for the Peace Corps as staff and managed volunteers and designed programs and things. And then Burkina Faso with Catholic Relief Services. And then Ghana, I was with USAID.
So, whenever you travel, whenever you live in other places, people ask you, what did you learn? What would you say you've learned from all your global experience?
Yeah. I think, again, as many of you probably have realized, that, you tear away the superficial things of skin color, hairstyles, the way we dress. I really do believe that people are people, and we want the best for our children. We want to eat well. We want to send our kids to good schools and get good education. We want to live peaceful, happy lives, and much of the global population also believes in God. So I really do believe that people are people, and we share so much in our humanity.
So you're our new executive director here, and we're all thrilled. And I'm just curious, how do you view leadership in an organization like Global Health Ministries?
Yeah, so GHM has been here almost 40 years, and some of you have been here from the very beginning. So it has hundreds and thousands of people that anchor it in its purpose and work. So I really feel lucky to have come at this time. There's been new staffing all across the board, and then some very strong staff who've been there for a long time. So I feel very lucky to come on board at this time and just kind of keep on shepherding the team, and then, of course, hopefully build it to be even stronger.
You guys are probably all wondering, is there something special you want to tell us about yourself, something that you want everybody here to know? I don't know. I'd like to ask you that question. What do you want everyone here to know about you?
Thanks. This was a hard question. Honestly, I think I'm very lucky. I had the great opportunity to grow up in a loving family with my grandparents close by, including my Hibbing-born grandfather and my grandmother. And I'm very good at winning raffle prizes. I've won a few nice prizes before. I've met some very famous people in the world that I feel very fortunate to have met. And what else am I lucky about? I have to look at my notes for this one. And I should realize this one. I've really had the great fortune of working with great people, and that's been made very clear to me here at GHM already. I see one right in front of me. Sorry, hi, Scott, and one right here next to me. There's a really great team, and I feel very fortunate about that.
So I don't know if you all realize, you probably do, that Heather started like 3.5 weeks ago. So she hasn't been here very long. And yeah, I think coming into a new role, there's a lot to learn. And I'm just curious, you've been here for 3.5 weeks. Now you get to meet all these wonderful people. You've experienced a bit of life at GHM. What has surprised you about GHM?
Yeah. You know, Peter asked me this question too. The board president asked me this question a week or two ago in our check-in meetings. And I had heard during my interview that there was a core group of volunteers at GHM of about 300, which already had impressed me. But really being present at the office and meeting the volunteers, many of you are those volunteers, really understanding the breadth and the depth of those volunteers, of you, has really surprised me and impressed me. The number of years, you know, we went around the table the other day and was no sweat for people to mention 15 years, 10 years, 20 years. Just so impressive, and the dedication is just really heartwarming and important and core to our mission. And this week is Volunteer Appreciation Week, so maybe let's give a round of applause for our volunteers again. Thanks.
Okay, a final question, which again, I recognize you've only been here 3.5 weeks. It's probably too early to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it. What is your vision for GHM, and where do you want to see us go as an organization?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I think GHM is really on a good path. So I feel like my job, at least in the near term, is to continue to get it on even stronger footing and legs. We've identified a few things already, work on getting more gifts in kind. We've talked about this for the warehouse, and maybe increasing our shipments to 24 per year if we can. And that requires more things coming into our warehouse. And getting more funds for the great work that you lead with consulting, with programming, and then just continuing to support the wonderful staff that we have. I'm so blessed, and we'll appreciate Diane momentarily, but during her interim leadership, they got the staff fully staffed before I got there, so I didn't have to deal with that, which is a blessing, because it can take a lot of work to hire somebody. So I'm grateful for that. We have all positions filled.
Well, thank you, Heather, and let's all give her a big round of welcoming applause.
Thank you. Thank you. And really, thanks to all of you. Thanks again to the staff. And I'm sure Peter will say this at the end, but thanks for the organizing of this dinner.
Yeah, thanks, Heather.